Title: A Bear's Warm Hug Saved the Day Once Upon a Time. In a quiet little valley surrounded by towering pine trees and rolling green meadows,
Oh.
there was a small village named Timberwood. Timberwood was a peaceful place where the villagers lived happily, tending to their gardens, crafting beautiful wooden furniture, and enjoying the gifts of nature. But what made Timberwood truly special was the presence of a kind and gentle bear named Bramble. Bramble was no ordinary bear. He was enormous, with thick golden brown fur that shimmered under the sunlight. But despite his size, he had the softest heart. He had lived near Timberwood for as long as anyone could remember, and unlike other bears, he never scared the villagers. Instead, he helped them. Whenever a tree fell, blocking a road, Bramble would use his mighty paws to push it away. When winter storms covered the village in thick snow, he would clear paths with his strong arms. And most importantly, Bramble gave the warmest, coziest hugs in the whole world. Everyone in Timberwood loved Bramble, especially the children. Whenever they felt sad or lonely, they would run up to him and he would wrap his big arms around them, melting away their worries. Bramble's hugs were magical. They made people feel safe, happy, and full of love. One chilly autumn morning, something unusual happened. A thick, gloomy fog settled over Timberwood, unlike anything the villagers had ever seen. It was so dense that people could barely see their own hands in front of them. The air was damp and cold, and an eerie silence covered the land. The villagers grew anxious, unsure of what was happening. Then a loud, frightened cry broke through the silence. my son is missing," wailed Mrs. Willow, one of the villagers. Her little boy Oliver had gone out to play near the river that morning, but had not returned. With the heavy fog surrounding the village, it was impossible to see where he had gone. Panic spread among the villagers. "We must find Oliver," they cried. But how could they? The fog was so thick that even their brightest lanterns could not cut through it. They called out Oliver's name, but their voices were swallowed by the mist. Fear and worry settled in their hearts. Bramble, who had been resting near the edge of the village, stood up and listened carefully. He had always had a keen sense of hearing, much sharper than that of any human. He focused all his attention, blocking out the nervous chatter of the villagers, and then he heard it. A faint whimper somewhere deep in the fog near the forest. Without hesitation, Bramble took a deep breath and stepped forward. The villagers watched as he disappeared into the mist, their hope resting on his broad shoulders. Inside the thick fog, everything was still and quiet. Bramble carefully placed each step, listening for the sound of Oliver's cries. The mist curled around him like a ghostly blanket, but Bramble wasn't afraid. He had to find the little boy. Then, through the silence, he heard another sound, the rushing of water. His heart pounded. The river Oliver must have wandered too close to it. Bramble hurried towards the sound, his large paws pressing into the damp earth. Finally, he saw a small shadow near the riverbank. Oliver, the little boy, was shivering, his tiny arms wrapped around himself as he crouched beside the cold, flowing water. His face was streaked with tears, and he looked terribly scared. "Oliver," Bramble said softly, not wanting to startle him. Oliver looked up and gasped. "Bramble!" he cried, running toward the bear. He buried his face in Bramble's fur, his little body trembling. Bramble wrapped his enormous arms around Oliver, pulling him into a warm, comforting hug. Instantly, Oliver felt safe. The warmth of Bramble's fur chased away the cold, and the gentle beating of his heart calmed Oliver's fears. "You're safe now," Bramble murmured. "Let's go home." With Oliver tucked securely in his arms, Bramble made his way back through the fog. As he walked, something incredible happened. The warmth from Bramble's hug spread outward, melting the coldness in the air. The fog, which had felt so thick and heavy, began to lift. By the time Bramble reached the village, the mist had completely disappeared, revealing the bright blue sky above. The villagers gasped in amazement. "Bramble did it!" They cheered. He saved Oliver and cleared the fog. Mrs. Willow ran forward and took Oliver into her arms, tears of joy streaming down her face. "Thank you, Bramble. Thank you for bringing my son home." Bramble gave a happy rumble and sat down, allowing the children to rush up to him for another round of warm, grateful hugs. The villagers realized that Bramble's hugs were not just comforting, they were powerful. They brought warmth, safety, and even light in the darkest times. From that day on, Bramble was more than just a friend to the villagers. He was their protector, their guardian, and their bringer of warmth. Whenever anyone felt lost, sad, or afraid, they knew that a big, warm hug from Bramble would make everything better. And so, Timberwood remained a happy, safe, and loving village. All thanks to the gentle heart of a bear whose warm hug had truly saved the day. The end.